Okay, so I've just forked a new copy of the repository, so it's on my own GitHub account. And from there on, you want to go and clone the repository. I think I'm just gonna remove the old one I had in here just so I don't get confused. Good. Okay, so from here on, make sure to read the README. We won't have time to do that together, but I'll try to find the things that we need in order to do the project. So the first thing we need to look at is the environment variables. Do all of you know what environment variables are and why we use them? So environment variables are really important when we have something like a password or something that we need to keep secret. And we absolutely don't want to put that on GitHub because this project is open source, it's out there, everyone can see it. So if you put passwords in there, that's a big problem. So environment variables allow us to have a file on a local computer that's not put into GitHub and where we can store these kind of things. And to help you out, whenever we go in the project, I think maybe that was what I had in my trash, so maybe just open it up again. So whenever we go in the project, we have this this one, env.example. Can I zoom it up a little bit? env.example is just an example file so you can see the environment variables that we have for this project. So we have environment variables for the database up here. We have, so you can set the port that we will be running the API on. We have a secret key that we will need to put something into to make the project secure. Then there's the port that you'll be running on the client. And then personally, I just added this because I think it's really annoying whenever you run Webpack. It opens up a browser window with the application. Some people really like that. I think it's annoying because it opens new window every time. So I like to turn that off, but you can use it or you can leave it. So if you look at the documentation, it says that we need to copy and rename the .env example to .env. So I think it's easiest just to do that on the command line. Let's maybe zoom that one up as well. So if we copy .env.example and make the new copy called that one .env. Now if we go in the editor, you can see we have a new file called env and the contents is exactly the same. And actually I'm just going to set up my database so all of this fits. Like you can see the database name here, the username root, db password root. And for the secret key here, you just want to put something random in there. It's not supposed to be the same like across your machines or anything like that. It's just going to be a long random secret. So I don't know, like generates salt, I think. That's like, you do this in WordPress as well, so you can maybe just take something like this.
You don't have the same file that you have.
.env example?
Yeah.
You don't have that in there? You should have.
We have the env.
It looks oh, for sure. Okay, make sure that you have pulled the latest version of the repository. If you had this one just like from yesterday or from an hour ago or something like that, it's already outdated. And make sure you pull from the develop branch as well. That's really important.
Maybe we should give 2 minutes for them to do that.
Yeah. Okay, but anyhow, for this secret key, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just important that it's long. So you could basically just like, that will also be satisfactory. Okay, so do you need a minute to just update your branches or what?
Do you know how to do it?
I just updated it, but I used the master, not the...
Yeah, go to develop.
Yeah.
But this for the steps, the stuff that we've been doing right now, it's not important because the .env file is not going to be in Git anyway. and we have the same files on develop and on master. But once you start putting some files that needs to go in Git, you want to make sure you are on the develop branch, and you make your own branches on the develop from the development branch, right? Yeah, the other people have breaks now. Thanks. Okay, but if you don't have exactly the same things in the .env file, we can easily fix that after. So I'm just going to continue showing you what's in the repository.
I connected to the database and I have done all the things.
Yeah.
I don't have the same.
Yeah, that's because you did it at an earlier point. Okay. So I'm just going to show you around a little bit inside the repository here. So first of all, the file structure. So this repository has both the client and the backend in the same repository. So if you go into the src folder here, you can see we have client and we have server. And if you look at the client folder here, hopefully it looks a little bit familiar because it's just like a create React application. There are like a few things that have been added. You can see here there's something about we have a router in there. So we already set routing up for you. And you can see there's a folder here with routes. So that's already set up for you. But I think aside from that, there's not like a lot of crazy things going on in the React department. Then on the server, and for this coming week, we're going to be working mostly with the server and the API side of things. So in the server, we actually done a fair bit of work for you already. We have, actually I want to go to the API, to routes. So if you go in here, you can see we actually have, we have like a router. Now the router is not a React router, right? You understand in Express routing is like API endpoints, right? So each route is an endpoint you can call and you can get some data in JSON format. But we already have routing set up in here as well, and we have, for instance, a user router in here, where you can see it's already now it's possible to call the get endpoint and get users. You can get like here you can get a specific user. Here you can get the account, so that means like all the account data related to your user and different things. So we have some endpoints set up for you in there already. But something that's very important here is this one, authorized user. So we actually have authorization set up for you. So you can have like passwords and stuff like that, log into the application, have parts of the application be protected. But it's not like there's no UI in there, so the way you have to think about it is we have endpoints that are protected. So if something like get all of the organizations, if that's something you're not supposed to be able to get without having a user that's logged in, that needs to be protected, of course, right? So that's why stuff like this here, you can see that getting the list of users, that's something that super users and admins can get. And super user and admin, that hooks into the DB diagram thing. If you go here, we can see the roles up here. You can see role names. You have, oh, that's really small. I don't know if that turned it any bigger. So you have operators and you have admins and you have super users. Super users, that's Tor and Martin. That's like the owners of the platform. They can go and create new companies and stuff like that. They need to be able to do everything. Admins are privileged users in the organization. So that's the people in the organizations that should be able to create new users within that organization. And operators are just like the regular users in the organization. And super users can do everything that admins can do, plus extra things that super users can do. Admins can do everything that operators can do, plus the things that admins are used to do, and operators can do the least. So they're like subsets of each other.
I have one.
Yeah.
So do you have mentioned somewhere like what is the authority for the super user and the admin? Like what number they have? Do you have the document or we have to decide?
I think I've written it here. Yeah, it's written right here. So.
Okay.
And there might be more details to it than what I've written here because it's like we haven't thought everything through, of course.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we somehow see the super user like roles and the admin roles and what it can do and what it cannot?
You mean
The super user probably can do the whole thing.
yes, that's the point. And you're thinking about a list of what they can do?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what she asked right now. You can see that list right here. If you go in the database model and you look in the notes here.
It's not detailed, it's an abstract
Yeah.
thing, right? Because when we were building the tasks, we will somehow give you that information, or you will have to understand
Yeah,
that.
but I don't know if it will expand, if there will be a lot more things. But generally, the thing is super users can create admin users.
Right.
And admin users can create operator users. And operators users, they can just use the platform.
Right.
So that's the gist of it.
Roughly that.
So we're going to give you some tasks that you're going to be doing for next week, and that will involve making some API endpoints. And when you're making these API endpoints, you need to build them so they are protected in the proper way. And I've written in the specification of those endpoints, I've written whether it has to be accessed by super users or admins or whatever. So it is specified there. But the point is here you can see some endpoints that are already created, and you can use that as a template to create your own endpoints that we will ask you to do later today. Then the next thing is the integration with the database. How many of you already know about migrations? A little about migrations? Okay. So we're using a library called Knex, K-N-E-X. And this library, first of all, it just makes it easier to connect to the database. But it also gives us this thing that is called migrations. And what is a migration? A migration is something about coming from one place to another place, right? And if you have a migration, it's pretty nice if you can also do the reverse migration. So it's you should actually be able to come from one place to another place, but you should also be able to come from that place and back again. Okay? So that's the high level of it. In practice, what we do is whenever you have something with a database, then you have a database running on your local machine. And if you're working together in a team, it gets really annoying if I start adding a new field to the user table and I start writing some code that assumes that that field is there. And then I have a teammate who needs to work on that, and he or she does not realize that I actually added another field in the database. I only have the code in GitHub, the code that's assuming that the database is updated, right? So the goal here is to try to get all of the changes to the database. Let's try to get that into Git. So we're basically just writing, rather than having just like things inside the database, we try to make all the changes that you make to a database over time, put that into files in Git. And that's what migrations do. So we already created some migrations because that was needed, because actually when you run this project, it will build the database that you saw. You're not actually going to have to build every single of these tables. We actually built that for you already. But you will have to make changes to this as we go. So you can see here some examples of migrations. And a migration at first has like a timestamp, so you know when was it created. And then it has some sort of name. So in this case, it's a migration that sets up the organizations table. I know that because you can see here, create table, organizations, and then it's like adding some fields in that table here. And this is the up migration. So that means that's migrating from here to here. But as I told you, we want to be able to migrate back again, right? What's the opposite of creating a table?
Return.
What?
Return.
Delete it?
No.
Huh?
Return, I think.
What? Sorry?
Return.
Oh no. Creating a table, make a new table, and delete a table.
Drop table.
Yes, exactly. So that's why down here we have the down migration. See, up migration
Drop table.
and down. So if you want to get the database back to where it was right before, then the down migration will just delete that table. If you have something where you add a field, then it's create this field, and the down migration is delete the field. But if you rename the field, it's more like rename to this, and then the down migration is rename back to what it was before, right? And this is really important because if you imagine someone has this stuff on Git, and they actually check out a previous commit, or they go on another branch or something like that, where the database was in the old state, they need to be able to get back to that state. It's not enough only going forwards. You always need to be able to go forwards and backwards. So that's why when we write a migration, we write the up migration and we write the down migration. And this is the library Connects that we're using for it. They have my documentation in here, so I recommend that you go and make yourself familiar with that. There's a lot of stuff in there that you might not need, but the really important things are learning how to write an up migration and how to write a down migration. And then there's something called seeding, because migrations has to do with just like setting up the schema, so setting up the structure of the database, right?
Yeah.
Creating new tables, renaming the column names and stuff like that, right? But it's not actually doing anything. It's not putting data into those. And when we start out with an application, it can be nice to have some data in there, so we don't have to go and create all of that data ourselves. In this case, we're going to get an external API from Thor and from Martin that will give us a lot of that data, but there's also some data that we're not getting from there. So for example, we're not getting any users because they don't have users in their system. Their system is just like a big machine that calculates where ships go, right? So they don't care about users. That's the responsibility of our application. So we have a folder here that's called seeds. And seeds is like, when you put a seed, you plant a tree, right? So this is kind of like the first thing you do, you put it in there and then you can grow it from there. And in the seeds file, we have a script here that creates one user. And this user has the email that's called test@test.com. And I made a little bit of a funny mistake. So I was trying to figure out how this worked because it was actually Shannon who built this. And I was trying to log in with test@test.com and then this password. And then I wrote, oh, it doesn't work. And then I actually, of course, because, we never put passwords in the database. We always have to hash the password. We have to malform it in some way so nobody can ever find that password again. So this is actually a hash of the password. The actual password is just test. So whenever you need to log in with this user, the email is test@test.com and the password is test. I don't know if that's in the README file. I don't think it is yet, but I will add that in the README file. And you can see that this user also has a role. Role is number 1. So if you go inside the seed for the roles, you can see that means number 1. He is a super user. So that's the one of the users that can do everything. So that's basically what our application starts with. It starts with this big data structure, and then it starts with one single user inside. That's what we have to start with. So let's try to get that running. So you need to be sure that you have a MySQL database running somehow. I should have one running now. I'm just realizing that I actually have the data in there already. I should have at least. So I have my database here already. So what I want you to do is to go on MySQL and create a new database. This is not going to create a database for you. Once you have the database, it can do everything for you. But I want you to go on MySQL and create a new database. I'm just going to delete my database here. If I can figure out how to do that with the UI. Delete database. And when you create a new database, it might be a good idea to call it whatever you had here in the env file. Optimum underscore voids underscore db, that's what I put in there by default. So that's what I'm going to use.
Can you show
But just look inside your own .env file. You should have it there.
Have you all created the .env file?
Yeah, copied it.
Yeah, copied it? No? Okay.
So I'm going to add a database. I'm going to call it that optimum voids db. And now I have it up here, so I've created a database. And I know that I've set up my MySQL server, so I have a root user that just has the password root. If your root user has a different password, just change it inside the .env file. Or if you want to use something else than the root user, then you can use another user as well. And to just quickly give you an idea, so how does the data come from that env file, and how can we actually connect to the database? So we have this file called Knex file, and that's the file that configures Knex and tells Knex to how to connect to the database, right? And you can see here we have some defaults here. Those are actually, I think I deleted those at one point. I actually want to delete them again. I don't know what happened with that. Well. Okay, so this thing process.env, that tells Node.js to go and read environment variables. And this one, process.env.dbHost, tells it to read the environment variable that's called dbHost. Okay? So that means that the .env file puts environment variable. Environment variable is a Node.js thing, or it's like something that works on all kind of servers on. But Node.js stores those environment variables, and they are only on your computer. They don't go on Git or anything like that. So they're secret to your computer only. And this is how you read a env variable. And Knex will basically just, once we tell it to connect to the database, it will read the data in here and use that. So how do we actually run Knex? So let's have a look in the README file in our project. There should be something about that there. Here is a section on the database. So it tells us that we need to have Knex installed globally. There's a command to do that, npm install global Knex. I've done it once, but it shouldn't hurt to do it again. Oh. Ah, done it. All right, so Knex is installed globally. And then you can see that we need to make sure that we updated the .env file. I think we already covered that. And then they tell us to run the server and make sure that it's actually successful. Okay, so to run the server, we need to do npm install, so we install all the stuff that's inside the package.json here, right? So let's just do npm install. And it's npm install, so it might take a while.
And I really recommend you to listen to me, honestly, because I spent 1 month to learn this. Yeah, and I made my database maybe 100 times. You know, I had to delete it from the scratch and make it again. Yeah. So he's explaining very well, honestly.
Thanks, Sumit.
When I was making the migrants, even then I made a very small mistake. I had to delete everything and I make it again and again and again.
And that's the thing. If you start doing that, if you start deleting, if you make a mistake in the migration, guys, this is actually really important.
Sorry?
So Omid is telling me when he tried to make migrations and make a small mistake, then you have to delete again, like delete the database, right? You'd never want to be there. One of the reasons why we do migrations, one of them was to collaborate with your team. But another reason is also if you have real data inside that database, if you have your website out there and real users are using it, you can't just go and delete the database and build it again. You'll lose the customers, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you need to write, every time you need to make a change on something that's running on production, you need to have a script to change those things. And that's what this helps you with. So basically with migrations, that means that you should never go in there and just go in your MySQL console and start doing SQL like that. You always put that in a migration. You always make a migration that does the opposite thing as what you just did, so you can undo the things that you just did. You basically have to make sure that all the interactions that you have with the database, like the structure of the database, changing the database, always goes through migrations. Because otherwise you're going to create a lot of problems for yourself down the road.
Can you show the migrants folder?
The migrants?
Yeah.
Migrations?
Yeah. And yeah, just imagine, for example, this table. This table that you put the column, the name. Okay, this is the name column, and it's a string. You cannot come here and change it to whatever you want because it has a date.
Oh yeah, that's
if you do not change it at all, because if you change it, you have to delete your database again.
That's a really important point. So the way this works is whenever
from the beginning.
Okay, whenever you run migrations, what it does is it goes inside this folder migrations, and it runs only the migrations that have not already been run. Because if this one has been run once, then it's like, okay, your database is fine. And the way that it knows that is inside your database, there's like a list of migrations that have already been run. So let's imagine that, which one is, the bottom ones are the latest ones, right? So let's say that our database right now says that we've been running these ones, but we haven't been running the two last ones. In that case, it will only run the two last ones. But then you realize, oh, you wanted to make this one a number instead of a strings. You can't go and edit this old file here. The old file is locked. You cannot do anything with that anymore. You have to create a new migration under this one that go in and take, I know this used to be a string, now I want it to be a number. And again, you need to do a down migration. So if someone changed their mind, now it's a number, but I want to change my mind back to a string. Then you need to do a down migration for that as well.
Of course, there is a way that you can modify the previous files, but it takes a lot of time to learn.
Yeah, but basically the idea is you never edit old migration files. That's the rule.
So if you want to make changes, to what we've done before, we have to create a new migration
Yes.
file. And how do we update what we've done previously down, all the changes that we made? Let's say the first migration depends on the order and so on.
Yeah. So the migrations have a time on them, so that means they will always be run in sequence. They will run this one first, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. And the only way you can make changes is by adding new stuff underneath this stuff. So if you made a mistake way up here, you need to change that mistake down here. Yeah, it always just takes it in an order, or that is, if it has already run the migrations down to this point, then we'll take them from here to here. And usually the case is you have all the migrations run, and then you just like add one more, and then just running the last one, right? So.
I don't get actually. I don't get. So what did you say? Like if I want to edit something in the vessels
Yeah.
.js, so I have to edit everything, whatever there is done.
No, you're not copying stuff from up here. So-
Yes. Okay.
So if, for example, vessels, you find out that this one MMSI, that should not be called MMSI, then in that case you create a new migration down here. We have like a tool that you're running to create a migration. I will show you. And then you will call the migration, you'll probably call it change vessel MMSI, something like that, right? That will be the name of the migration, so we can like recognize it when we see it on the list. And then inside the change MMSI, you won't have like a create table because we're not creating a table anymore. This is already created. Then you'll just have like a table dot, and I don't know if it's called rename or what it's called. Actually, I don't remember the API for this. But something like table dot rename MMSI to NMSI if it's called like that or something like that, right? And then you remember to create the down migration,
Yeah.
and then you do it the opposite way, so you rename NMSI to MMSI, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
But then what about the rest, the down you said you need to update that as well? Rest
You
files,
don't need to update anything else.
Okay.
But let me just show you what happens when I'm running a migration, and then I hope
Yeah.
that that will clear things up a little bit.
Okay.
Actually, you can make everything and you don't need to
We-
modify anything.
Well, you will have to modify things during the project for sure. I promise you. So,
Can I have 1 minute?
Yeah.
I need to go.
Yeah.
But the Trello is created. Has everybody accepted my invitation on Trello?
Yes.
Yes?
Check it in the Gmail.
check your email if.
And how do we move on from that? I've added the fake JSON
Fake
file.
JSON thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've added a
Yeah.
link for
Nice.
the NPM
Nice.
for that. So just to go through it.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can assign that.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be online soon.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm gonna get the old
Sure.
before we.
All right. Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay. So
See you next week. Or in Slack, yeah?
if we try to go back to the README file, so the last thing that we did was we did like a npm install. Can I have your attention here? So we did an npm install, and that basically means that the Node.js thing of the application should be ready to run, right? And then it tells us to run the server. It doesn't actually tell us how to run the server, so maybe we should add that. But I know how to run the server. I can show you how you can find out. So if you go to the package.json, you can see there's like a section here called scripts. And we prepared some scripts for you. And the one that you want to use is the one called dev. You can see that does concurrently, that means run something at the same time as something else. So it's running npm run server and npm run client at the same time. So apparently you can run either the server or the client, or you can run both of them. Let's just try to run both of them. npm run dev. So whenever you're running something from npm scripts, you type npm run and then the name of the script here. And that starts up the browser and all that because I didn't turn that off. And then if you go and look at the output here, it's something about app crashed. I don't like that. This is just the React part. Where's the pipe 5000 is already in use. Okay, so apparently I'm running the server somewhere else. Okay. I'm just gonna kill it the hard way. Oh, not like that. There's like better ways to do this. I just don't remember right now. I don't want to Google it. Let's just try npm run server then, because we only need the server right now. Okay, so it says server listening on port 5000. That's great. Connection to Optimum Voice DB database successful. Cool. So I actually managed to connect to my database. So if you try the same, try to do npm run server after you did npm install, then hopefully you can have the same. So right now you do npm install next. Or okay, but that's not the one you want. Did you do npm install for the project? Okay, you need to do that one. And then after that, npm run server.
I don't have to use subclass.
Yeah, you do need space as well, right? It's kind of nasty. Let's have a look at that after. I think you have something with like how permissions are set on the folder. Missing right? I know what it is. Okay. It's because when you're installing global npm packages, this folder here, if you use it, does not have access to that one. Then you can have this problem. But we can fix that. Let's just do another one here. And then you just do sudo.
Yeah.
Did it fit it?
We did install and we break the we
I
just
think you have to do the dash G here.
and login.
And your password. Refuse connection to the database. You have a database already? You have a database running, and you need to make sure that the env file matches what you have in your database. That's an env example. You just have a copy of this file and just call it .env. And make sure that the username and the password is the name of the database that is right. Yeah.
I have my file, right? That was the master. Right. And I use them develop. Sorry, Git and check
The only problem I had that before, I think was like
Just need to make sure that all the credentials here are right.
there is
So
a master also.
root user that has that one, is that root?
You should not do it in the master, you have to do this one in your branch, develop branch. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in
And
the
notice that you are in the .env file, not in the example, alright?
no, it's what I said.
Is it okay that I have my
Okay, no.
So this is what we're going on.
It says it's master when I checked it.
That one you can just fill it out with like what you not see there is no difference.
Okay.
I don't know, I just had it like that. Everybody is happy. Why?
So now
Why
I
you are
want
in
to
master?
Honestly, I
Go
didn't
for a random key, it doesn't matter.
answer like this opposite.
It just has to be something that's long ago.
It is the project.
So does that
You
mean
close it before it
I can continue
from
to
the.
You don't have black master badge here.
if I can
This is.
I think maybe just a root user that's just do everything in the database.
Okay.
That's fine, but if you don't want to use that on the
This is not in GitHub before.
Oh.
You have to fork it.
what about
Yeah, I thought it,
Exactly,
yeah.
from other git. I
Yeah.
mean, other GitHub.
So this is how you connect it to the server.
And what is
I have
what?
to
I don't know how you were in
But it's
there.
Let's be more detailed than that.
Yeah.
Did you run the migration?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Some file like
Yes.
But now it's in my
because I
repository.
have changes to it when I was
So
Stream is not in
But
our.
where did I still mention here in my school?
Oh,
stream has it,
We need to get
has
our
a
session
trace,
out.
but you don't have the permission to do any changes in that. You may make some changes, if you want to do some changes and push it to the queue, send a pull request.
Yeah, you're getting ahead of us here.
Um,
That's not how you're supposed to do it.
Okay.
No, I have to.
I need to remove that file there. That's able to do this. You should run it.
No. Yeah, but you said you create database and create it, huh?
You have to add that
Database.
This time you have an account,
Where?
I mean,
Connect to
you have a
database?
password and everything.
I did it, yeah.
Changes.
So I'm assuming that your password is not really
Yeah.
No, what should I do?
So you know,
I
last
understood that,
request,
there's
when they change, they will do some access, make the changes in.
You
So
still
you
want
will
to
be
see
able
something?
to.
You did that for me?
Also equality, but we can't.
And you will start the
access,
process.
we don't have access. And process only
You got it?
you have to
Yeah?
remember
Which,
to.
what
Yeah,
kind?
from.
Yeah?
Okay,
Yeah.
but now I want to get the latest version.
Okay.
Latest, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
I'm going to continue now. If you still have problems, we'll have a look at it in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I have to create a database? Create it?
Yeah.
Where?
you just create a database that's called Optimum Voyage DB, like it's written in the EME file.
I went here, connect to
So now I
database.
should fetch it.
Um,
Git fetch.
I don't know. But you know, let's just have a look at it after. Okay, everyone. So I continue.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Do you know
Guys.
that we have to continue?
Yeah.
Guys, we'll help you out with the rest of your questions after. Okay. So can we take that after? No. Good. I promise we'll help.
I need your help later also.
Yes, later on. Okay. So if you look again in the README file, you can see that it's actually explaining how you can make new migrations. We don't need to do that right now. You can also create a seed. We don't need to do that right now because we already done this stuff for you. But this one is interesting. To apply migrations and the seed, you can run npm run db setup. npm run db setup, that's not part of Knex. That's something we set up for the project here. So let's have a look just like how that works. So db setup, that's the npm script here. What does that do? When you're in the root of the project, it will change the directory into the server one. Let's have a look. What does that look like? It looks like this. And inside the server one, it will run the command that's called Knex migrate latest. That's part of the Knex thing. And the reason that we are cding into this folder in here is because here we have the Knex file. So that's a configuration that tells Knex how can I connect to the database. When we and after it runs Knex migrate latest, it will run Knex seed run. So what Knex migrate latest will do, it will have a look at the migrations folder, and then it will try to figure out, okay, how many of these migrations that I find in this folder have already been run. Since this is the first time we're doing this, none of them have run before. So we'll just go through them sequentially. Run this one, run this one, run this one, and so on until it has done all of them. And once it's finished with the migrations, then it will have a database structure set up for you, but the database will be completely empty. That's why the next step in the package.json file was Knex seed run. So what seed run will do, it will have a look in this folder, and then we will look again sequentially at the files here in the order that they're created, and it will run the SQL to insert data. So what the idea is, migrations, you keep all the stuff that has to do with the structure of your database, and seeds, it's where you keep all the SQL that has to do with like inserting start data, like initial data, stuff that you need in your application just to get started. Because on a real application, of course, you want like real users to input real data, but you can also use this on a test environment, and then you can have like 10,000 rows of some data or something like that put into your database really quickly, so you can see if it performs well under a lot of data and stuff like that. But for the typical application, the seed will just be the stuff you need just to get started. And in this case, we need a super user, so he can go and create like admin user, and the admin user can go and create operators, right? Yes. So let's try and run that command there. So again, if you look at the package.json file, the command was called db setup. So what we need to run is npm run db:setup. Oh no. Yeah, I have a feeling why this is happening. So you saw that I removed some things in here.
The password in the environment is not correct.
No. The problem is I made a change to this file, and for some reason it's not in development branch. I think I forgot.
Problem.
Yeah, but I know why this is. It's not here. What? I must have messed up when I merged something at some point. No, it's .env.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to push this fix to the develop branch in a minute. But you just need to make sure that it does like this, so it finds the right env file. Didn't work. Did I go one step too far, or did I just like this maybe? No database selected. It's still not reading these things.
Yeah. You know, I write
Yeah, you had it out here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not right because it's not reading it from the Connect file, from the env file. That's the problem. So we are in the server folder. We go one step up to source and one step up. So that is 2 steps. Do we need to do like that? I don't think so. I'm never sure of those stuff. Okay. I'll have a look at fixing it properly after. DPU host was my... no, it was not.
127. This is the host. The host should be
Yeah, the first one.
27.
120. It's local host.
Yeah, that's the same. For some reason, with databases, it's best to connect on 127.0.0.1. I'm not sure exactly why. Database. I made a mistake here, right? Oh, that was what you were trying to say to me for. Okay, I understand now. Sorry. No! What's going on? Error while executing, C, dun. Data too long for column row. I'm a little worried because we made some changes to this like really late.
Maybe the
So
path
maybe
that
we've
you
broken
had
something.
in the config.
Huh?
The path that you had to config.
Yeah, that shouldn't matter now. But it is actually getting connection to the database.
Yeah.
So there's something that's not matching up. User roles. There's something with the roles. Super user. Data too long for column role at row 1. So did he set like role. User roles there. Yes.
Did you change anything
He said
here?
like
Yeah?
a restriction on the string length.
Okay, let me see because mine is working.
So what's the longest super user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9. And admin is shorter and operator 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes. Okay. There's some small errors in here. Sorry about that.
Now you change inside.
Yeah, fuck, I need to make a new migration, you're right. Damn it!
Now you have
Now I have to figure out how to change the length of the field in a migration. Okay, that's good, we're learning something. We're learning together. So, first of all, we can see how we make a new migration. There was something in our own repository about that, I remember. Something about make, yes. Migration make, migration name. Okay. Actually, connects migration make. And it's kind of important for these things that you're actually inside the server folder. So we need to go into source and server. Connects migration make.
The name of the new file. Now
Change. Role change. Role length. Yeah, the reason I call it like that is it's a table role, and on the table you want to change, and what is we change? We change the role length. Okay, now I have to figure out how to actually the thing about connects is you can use that to kind of like write SQL. So I need to figure out how to change this one.
What was that?
That is the restriction on how long a string can be.
Okay.
So if you set restrictions like that, that allows your database to be more efficient, because otherwise it's going to reserve memory for like really long strings. And if you know this field, I'm never going to put a string that's longer than something short. Maybe we should make it a little longer than 9, so we don't have to do this again.
Yeah, we need to go down.
Yeah, now I need to figure out how to change that. So you can see that's the one here called precision, no, length here, length. So
Look at here, it's written table.
yeah, table.
Go up.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah, I need to do all the table.
but
Yeah, maybe just
it's a one column in the table. Yeah.
yeah, it's one column in the table. Yes.
Okay.
They will put like we will do what
But I was just thinking. So when you create a string here, but what if you want to modify a column? Change column, modify. Create table, rename table. Nils, do you know how to change the length of a string in SQL? Or can maybe just do it in raw? Huh? Yeah.
You need to use the update.
Updates.
Yeah. You use
Oh, yeah,
this is
name,
the
yeah,
table
yeah, that's-
where ID2, for example,
Yeah, you could-
update name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you send that to Slack?
Just search
Send it to Slack.
Connect
Next update.
cheat sheet.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Next cheat sheet, yeah,
Are
okay.
you in channel 9? On channel 9? Huh?
Sorry, just a second, I will send it.
Yeah?
No, I'm pretty sure Knex update is actually to update. It's not to update the schema. That's to update the content. Table, create table. Okay, guys, we're in the start of the project, so we know we don't have a running application with a lot of data in it. So we're just gonna start from scratch. I'm just gonna rename it inside the file that we already have, even though you're not supposed to do that, because we want to get this done. So I'm just gonna rename it here, and then we're gonna do 12. What that means is that it's not gonna work if someone has already run all of the migrations. So if what I want you to do is, but you probably didn't run the migrations because you couldn't run the migrations because of this. So, but if you did run them, I want you to delete the database and start again.
I don't think we did it. We're just watching you.
Yeah. So the command was npm run db setup, and that was going to make the schema, and then it's going to run the migrations. I don't know if it's going to complain because I already created the schema, but let's see.
You know, when I updated the schema that you put it here,
Yeah.
it was 7,
Yeah.
and mine is working.
But that's because when you did this, that was before we renamed the roles. We've renamed the roles today. That's why it's not working. So what's going on here? Seed insert into user roles. Values one super user data too long. It says the same thing. Why does? Oh, that's because. Okay, I understand why. I did run the migration to create the schema. And since I did that before, it's not going to do it again, and now it's just trying to do the same thing. I needed to rerun the schema. So I actually do need to delete my database. And if you got as far as I got, you need to do the same. So I'm just going to do that.
Add database.
Yeah, so I delete the database and I add it again. And this is how you're not supposed to do it. We'll try to figure out after. We'll try to figure out how to actually change the length of one of those. So now the migration has not run and the seed has not run. So it's all from the scratch. Yeah. So it has ran the 3 seed files. Let's have a look in my database. Come on. Yeah, see, I have like all my tables in my database now. And if we go to users, you can see that we have a user in here.
Yeah.
Test@test.com, organization ID 1, password, and I told you this password is actually test, it's not this long string. And some other things. Cool. So I told you that some of the endpoints will be protected. They will be behind authentication. And now I'm going to show you how you can log in order to use those endpoints. But again, you know, it's not like a user interface where you just press a login button or something like that. We're actually logging into an API. So what is the goal for that? The goal is we want to get a token back, like a really long string that's really unique. It's unique to only you. Only you can use that token. And that token is created as a combination of your email and your password, but also the long weird thing that we entered in here. So if you haven't already changed that, please go and change that. You can. I mean, it was like on purpose that I wrote like something really nonsensical here. It's just to make that really long. So you can actually use this as a secret key, but since it will be the same on each computer, it's not very secure. So you should just enter something long and random in here. But yeah, so it will put together a token based on different things, passwords, email, and this kind of stuff. And that will uniquely identify you. So whenever you communicate with the API, you have that token with each request to the API, and then the API will know that you're you and you're not someone else. So I will try to show you how to authenticate with the API. Have you all tried to use Postman before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. We're going to use Postman for this. So I made a little collection of routes that I use to test all of this. And one of them is the login route here. And you can see I'm using like some variables inside of Postman. I don't know if you try to use those. You can go up here and press this thing here, and then you can set the variables in here. So you can see my variables at the moment is localhost, and then the port. The port up here is 3000. And here I have an auth token, but this one is already out of date because we changed everything. So the goal is to get a new one of this guy here, right? And how do we do that? We do that by calling the login endpoint here. So that's localhost 3000 auth login, and it's a post request.
I'm so sorry. Can you show again how did we start to make this API pass?
The variables inside Postman.
Yeah.
So that's this one up here.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. Thank you.
And here. And I can't actually remember. Yeah, okay, of course, you have to fill out the body here. You have to choose raw and then JSON application JSON, so it knows that the content of the request you're sending is JSON. And here you have a JSON object, and then you of course fill in your email and your password. So this part is almost like typing it in on a form on a website. You type your email and you type your password, right? And when I send that to this endpoint here, I hope that we'll get an authentication token back. So let's try that. No. What happens? So,
Wow.
Still running?
no. Thanks. Sent? No. That's actually because I'm only running the server and I'm calling 3000, and 3000 is the client, but we have Webpack set up, so if you go on the client/API, that will send it from 3000 to 5000. So I need to run both the client and the server, and we do that with npm run dev. Now I hope it works. Yes! And you can see you get a token and then you get a refresh token. I'm not sure, it's Shanovas who built this, I'm not sure how often it's supposed to refresh that token, but I think it's like really long times. But if something stops working suddenly with your tokens, just try to log in again.
Just decode it and see how long it expires.
Okay, yeah.
We can do it later.
Yeah, let's do that later. But I copied this token here. And still within Postman now I want to try some of the other endpoints. By the way, we're going to document exactly how all of the different endpoints work. We're planning to use Swagger with that. We just didn't manage to get that ready yet. But I'll make sure to, I think I'll put it in the README file to start with, just like how you can call the different endpoints. But let's start trying out the get users endpoints. Because that's the only data that we know is in the application. Right now there's just one user in the application. So let's try to see if we can get that user out of the API. So again, I have the path of the application, localhost, I have the port 3000, then I have, shouldn't I have /API? Oh, that's actually in there as well. I put that in the variable. Maybe that's not so smart to use the variables like this when you can't see everything. You can see APIs here, right? So that's part of the API path here. /users. And then if we go to the body, no, headers. We have a header called authorization, and here I have the auth token. And I could just like copy paste the auth token in here, but since I'm going to use that token a lot of times, it's really nice to use this thing in Postman where I can just save it to this guy here, and then we'll always use the same auth token. So it starts with the same, but I think that's because it's encoding like time and stuff like that. But the end is hopefully different, so I hope I copied it. Otherwise we'll just do it again. So let's try to call the user's endpoint. Oh no!
Are you recording or not?
I'm screen recording, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Alright, so maybe I did not copy the right one. So let's try the login endpoint again. We actually still have it here. It ends with WVI. Yeah, I think I did put the right one in there. Oh, what did I call it? Oh, something like that. Maybe it's because I put it in current value, not initial. I don't know. Could make a difference. Auth token sent. Still not working. I do get a 200 OK. So let's have a look if it's outputting something in the console here. It does register that I'm calling the 200 endpoint. Oh, that might also have something to do with the fact that we just changed some things. So right now the user I have has, let's go in the database here. I have role ID number 1 and user roles number 1. That's called super user. And let's have a look at the endpoint in the code. So we need to find users.route, something with route and users, user.route. Is this the one I'm calling? API/users get endpoint. It's a get API/users. That sounds right. Currently, this one is set to allow super user and admin. That looks right. We can try to remove the authentication. That's of course not what you're supposed to be doing, but just for debugging. Turn on server error. Oh, interesting. It's not just because I messed up some, no. Rest of undefined. Okay, so that's because it's assuming that you get like the role in there. It's assuming that like for later on. I remember I ran into this when I tried to do this before.
So try decode
The token, yeah.
See if the role is correct.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that, but yeah, I'm sure you can tell me how. Okay, cool. Okay, I guess it took the initial value and put that into current value, right? Oh. Yeah. Created at I can see it out down there, yeah. So that looks right. So you can see this token is actually encrypting all of this data here, right? Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's very likely that we broke that by changing the role names. Yeah, I know. So what's this thing? Name admin. I think there could be something here.
Nobody will do. Are you going to explain what's wrong?
Yeah, that's the name of the user, I guess.
Yeah, could be.
You happened last two?
But what if?
No. It's the first time.
A lot of metadata.
Yeah.
Is it because there you have seen the role as a super user, but in the get you have super user and admin role? Is it because of that?
Super user and admin. Well,
So here,
yeah, here I see
there's
admin.
only the super user, right?
Just put the
Oh,
name
admin
maybe.
is-
super
Admin is the name of this guy,
Yeah.
but I don't know why he has the name admin.
And down the role is super user, right?
Yeah, this one should be the important one, but I don't know if this could do something. So that's what I'm trying to find out now then.
Check them also in the middleware.
Yeah, so admin is actually the name of the user, like could be Peter.
Yeah, but in the get it is mentioned like super user and admin.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the.
But should just random, but should it be like, shouldn't it have like an array of permitted roles and not just like two strings? Because
Users,
that's
admin.
like using these structures.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it could be because it uses includes and that's array.
And where are you talking about in the request now?
Yeah, try to let the user rather.
Or here?
Yeah. Then you make like instead of having two strings as an argument, just make it an array of strings.
I done it once.
Yeah. And just take the function.
I'm just like, I know this did work before and I didn't change that for sure. User.
Yeah, I think it's something with the authorization.
Yeah. Wait a second. So actually, Jana was sent me documentation, and I think maybe.
I don't know why he's spreading the permitted roles. If you go to the authorization middleware, like auth middleware.
Yep.
I don't know why it's
Yeah.
spreading.
This one, right?
Two
Yeah,
minutes.
I don't know why he's spreading it. Try not to that.
Yeah, that's true. That looks like you should have an array coming in there.
Yeah, but try not spreading because it just uses includes. It's only used one. Like that.
Permitted roles, where is that used on?
Yeah. And just
And
checking
this
if it
should be
contains it.
changed
So
also.
that's-
Yeah, but there's this. Now it assumes that it's an array, right?
Yeah. So try again.
Now it should work.
Really?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Change the message.
Hmm.
New homework. Find
But
the
what I
problem.
was thinking is more that I was actually using regular JSON requests, and he's using URL encoded
Yeah,
form.
for those people.
But I know I did it with JSON Friday, but
Can you put something in the authorization tab? Maybe?
where is it? Where is it? You set that?
It doesn't work.
Because here you can set it here, but
Oh, I don't talking about this working.
X
2 hours
form
ago,
URL
you
encoded.
updated it with me. 2 hours ago. Yeah. This is in his,
Oh, there.
in his repository, hacker page. Okay? Now, I have to cancel it.
Nils, is this right then? So now I set this one to X form URL encoded authorization, and then what's it called the auth token.
I want to cancel this.
But then I'm assuming that we should remove it from.
Because
the headers, right?
I want to use master, I cannot push in his master.
Oh wait, here content type. What? Oh, so it probably added that there.
Yeah. That's how it
I guess it should be a header,
Yeah.
like this, right?
Request it to be master.
Did you pull request or did you ask pull request? This is okay.
This is not us. This is he.
So you have to push that in your
Let me cancel this one.
Okay. Okay, another thing we can try and do is we can try to revert Git to right before we rename these roles. And in that case, the roles will be called, what was he called them before? He called them admin, user, and guest, I think. And then just do it from scratch there. And then figure it out after. I think we'll try doing that.
Well, just a random question.
Yeah?
How many users do you have in the database?
One?
How many users do you have in the database?
One. Why did it not copy? Oh, I didn't actually. Okay, now I should be right before we rename stuff, and then I'm going to go and clear out the database again. So we got a new database. And npm run db setup, right? Rooted localhost. Is that because of my Knix file being broken again? Yeah. So if we go in the database now and look at the users, it has role ID 1 and user roles, admin, user, and guest. So they are called different now. But if we go to the router in here, they should also be called admin and user. So our current user is admin. So hopefully he can access the right endpoints. So we need to log in again for sure. And what was it we were passing in test down? That should be all right. And I'm not running a server. Okay, we got a new token. And initial value. Just going to delete that one, I think. Let's try to send.
Should we post first?
Bad request.
Yeah, but we have to post for login or no? Did you log in?
I did log in, yeah.
Yeah.
I did get a new. I think the way I did this before was with that. No, because I added as a header here. Oh, let's turn off that. No role defined.
But what did you just update the code, some changes, or
Huh?
just post some changes in the code? Or?
I reverted back to the commit right before we started renaming the roles.
How's the authorization looking
So middleware or
Yeah. And try to change it to an array and just like
it's not it. And it's not, no, that's a individual user. That's not the endpoint I'm trying to hit. That should be alright.
what is there? You could, it's the one from the alternate we're saying doesn't exist. Checks if there's a user down.
But I'm not even sure if you spread like this and you pass in two separate parameters, does it gather it together in an array or what happens?
I think so.
Yeah, I've never done it that way around.
I would also not do that.
No. I mean, we could, if you do the array thing, you would have to do like this, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't
That's
remove
like
the
that
spread
by
before.
user. You didn't save the middleware file.
You're right. Thanks. I don't know if I was, no, I should be okay. Let me try again.
This looks like I can't find the user.
No, defined. And should we try to decode the out token again, maybe? No, stay on its admin.
And it's the same user roles ID one does not match.
You mean in the database? No content. Right, users here. Role ID 1, right? Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I think we need to give you some tasks, and then I guess we'll have to sit together and figure out what's wrong after. So let's have a look at how we're going to do that. You should be invited to the Trello board now.
Yeah.
Looks something like this.
Okay.
And I hope we have all of you up here. Oh yeah, it's +9, so it should be around that number. So of course we have like a lot more tasks than what you see here coming up. I'm not entirely sure if you're just going to throw everything in there and just assign you on them, or we're just going to add more on for each week. We'll figure that out. But you can see here we have like individual tasks for you to do. This one is just a matter of creating a test user for operator and for admin, because you know right now we only have the test user for super user, and super user is currently called admin, which is confusing, but that's because of the wrong names. Well, in your code base it should be called super user, but we'll fix that before you start working on it. At least I hope so. So most of the tasks will look more something like this. So this is specification for a API endpoint. And what we expect you to do when you see a task like this is, of course, read it, but The first thing it says, refer to the DB diagram for up-to-date data structure. So I mean, like, maybe we change something last minute in terms of the DB. We won't change an entire table or something like that, because that would be like a separate endpoint. But maybe we added a field or something like that in the database, so you need to make sure that you have the latest data model. So go to the repository and go to the link here. Okay. So we're telling you to create an endpoint for organizations. So that would be this guy down here, right? So you have name, logo, created on, updated on, and created on and updated on. I'm pretty sure they will be populated automatically by MySQL. The way that we set it up, let's just have a quick look at that. Organization. Yes, it defaults to the time.now. So you don't have to worry about them, but you do have to worry about the logo, the name, and the ID. So no, actually the ID will be set. You can say it's set to increments, so it's automatically setting new IDs whenever you add something. So you only have to worry about the name and the logo. That's the only thing in creating a new organization. And then you need to make 3 endpoints. You need to make an endpoint to create an organization. You need to make an endpoint to get an organization based on the ID. You need actually to make more than that. So apparently I forgot something. You need to have one to get all organizations as well. So that would look like this. And I think it's only the super users who can get all our organizations. Yeah, so you need to have an endpoint where you can get all organizations. You need to have an endpoint where you can get a specific organization when you have the ID of that organization. And then you need to have an endpoint where you can update that organization. And you can see here on the auth, I've written who is supposed to be able to do these things. So you need to set these things. So a task like this, go and have a look at how the user routes are created and adapted based on that. And you can see most of the task for next time is about creating API endpoints. So they will be very similar. But organization ones, this one is fairly simple because this one does not have any sub-resources. But once you start getting into something like a vessel, no, a voyage. Here you can create a voyage, you can get the voyage. And here you can also get all voyages that are associated with one particular vessel. So that's where it gets a little more tricky. And there's a lot of them that will have some sub-resources like that, where you need to join some database tables and you need to look up, I only want the ones that has this particular voyage on them. But they're kind of in order, like ideally you do organizations first, then vessels, then voyages, then vessel report, then routes, and so on. But we need to distribute work out to all of you. So if there's some of you who know you can go home and do some work like almost immediately, that would be really nice for you to try to pick the stuff on top of the list. On the flip side, that might actually be easier stuff. On the flip side of that means you get finished really fast, so maybe you can get more work after. But we kind of want to try to distribute this task out to all of you. And as you can see, there was like this one, and then there's like a lot of API endpoints, and then down here there's one about creating a JSON server. Did you try to work with JSON server before? So it's just like you run a npm library and you put a JSON file in there, and when you run that npm library, it exposes that JSON file as an API, so it looks like an API. So we're going to be using JSON's. Okay, we're going to be using JSON server to.
Making fake API.
Exactly, we're going to use JSON server to make a fake API. That's going to be like the API that Tor and Martin will be building sometime in the future. And we told them that we want to do it this way so we don't have to rely on them building it first, and then maybe we figure out we want it in another way and something like that. So this makes us quite flexible in terms of like changing how we structure that. We have all of the data from Tor and Martin in separate JSON files, so it's just a matter of putting it together in a JSON file, running JSON server, testing it, making sure that everything is consistent. So it's actually not such a hard task, but there's like a little bit of research in terms of figuring out how things work. So, and I don't know, you're 10 students, right? 11 actually?
Yeah.
Okay, I think this 11 tasks. Perfect. So I think it's just like a matter of doing a first come, first served. So is anyone up for doing like the early task and committing to also trying to finish them as early as possible? Who wants the first one?
Me.
You want the first one?
Is this one the first one?
It's the easiest one. I give you, as soon as you finish, I give you a harder one. So what was your name again?
You did?
I wonder if so E. What? Did you accept the Trello thing?
Yeah.
Maybe you are called.
I think with L it started like I did put like
With L?
L. Yeah.
Like this. Okay. Cool. Off.
Oh,
Great.
at least you can assign it.
So actually, this one was that was not the organizations one. That was actually the creating test users. I don't know if you rather want the organizations one. If you thought that was the one.
You can have both, maybe.
We have 11 tasks, so this one is just a matter of updating the seed file and creating 2 new users. So that's
give
actually
me another one.
yeah. Okay. Then you get this one. So, wait, didn't do it. Or what? What does this mean? Does that mean you added to it or what? Yeah, it does. It does. And then I remove you from that one. So who wants the create test users?
Yeah, for us everything is same.
Everything is same.
But like you can try to do some others. If you want, like if you have time, for example.
If you have what?
If we have time, we can try to do some other tasks.
Yes, I think some of these tasks will be really quickly. So I think we need to add more tasks into this. Yes. Yeah. I mean, should I just like randomly assign people?
Yes, yes.
Then I hope like everyone I pick here is students actually. Okay, so then I'm just going to add you randomly, and then you have to make sure you have a task.
I have this one, choose the
Member.
Yeah.
You can add me.
I was here, right?
I got results. You got result reports.
So who do we have left now? I can't remember who I used the one way of. N? Yeah.
Are you at
Okay.
Just only the Make sure you add yourself, like the task.
No.
You have to fix the code. Like,
Yeah, I have plenty of tasks. I promise you. Who didn't get a task now?
Yeah, go on.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Det der, that's news. Oh, Shanos is in here as well. So maybe.
Do we have to make the status after like done after we do it?
Sorry?
Do we have like to change to like the status like going and done after we finish?
Which one did you get now? It was you got the organizations, right? So the organizations is not, there's not anything but the 2 fields there.
No. I'm asking like when you do it, do you have like the quick you have finished the task? Or it's gonna be
Oh,
like
yes. Okay, yeah,
done?
sure. I don't understand.
Yeah, you grab it and you put it.
Yes.
If you are doing
Okay,
it,
so everyone, once you have done the task, once it's finished, you actually know, now when you have confirmed the task and you're like, I understand what it is I'm supposed to be doing, you take the task and you put it in doing, okay?
Okay.
And once it's done, you put it to done, and then you tell either Daniel or me or one of the other mentors, I'm out of work, I need more work, give me work, right?
Yeah.
And I think probably during the week I'll probably add some more stuff to the to-do column. So you can also just go and find something that's on the to-do column that's not in progress. Pick that, put it in the doing column so nobody else is going to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's why you're putting it in the doing column, right? So it's not like anyone's doing double work. Yeah.
But I can grab like one of them and just, for example, Rahim's task. I can grab it like done.
Without doing it, you mean?
Yeah, for example, like his task, I can just grab.
Oh yeah, you can grab other people's. Yeah, but you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
You move your own
Like
task,
by
right?
mistake,
Exactly.
Yeah. You shouldn't.
My task is J.
Yeah?
I need more information to understand what I need to do.
Yeah, is this one?
Yeah, J.
Yeah, that's true. This one is a little different as well.
It's a little bit difficult.
Oh my god.
Oh, clean it to my face. Damn.
First we have to understand what
API.
they have people.
Some files, they go.
What? You are in the first.
To understand
Let me open it
on
now.
top of that, I make this.
Quanto fare, cioè? Fovali, fare.
Voor ik kan pakken.
Fare, ce l'ho faccio grande description.
We found out right now when you create a
I will write description for you.
But we have the same.
But the problem is we forgot to think about actually how we're going from 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's
Numbers.
like
So right now you can't solve
the
this
second line and you play.
without changing the database.
You play the first line where you can get routes, from routes, then this.
The problem is this 0 thing.
It's good.
0 to something that never resets. It's always just going up and up and up and up. And it doesn't matter that you're on a different route. So we want to add another field that's just a number. We call it sequence. And this one is whenever you start put waypoints in a route, it will take that number and set 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up, depending on the order. So the only thing you need to do is you need to add a number to this table called sequence. That's it.
And then it starts to count once you have
Yeah, but you're not even going to do the counting because you have to do that in the application. So right now you're just
update this table, so you put
Oh, this is one.
And remember,
Can
you
be
do it
scary.
by making migrations.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
You also add refer the database.
so read out a little bit on Connect and how the migrations work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start looking in the
Something
reading
bad.
about migrations,
So,
and then go on
oh,
and look
wait,
in the
either way,
basic
I
migrations.
So I have to go here.
Right now, the project is not set up yet, I'm having errors running.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is.
Yeah, for all of you, of course, the first priority is to get your projects running and working. And I understand right now you cannot actually get the you cannot log in actually. Yeah, you can get the point
We can.
where you can do the migration and the seed, but you cannot use the login. You can get your authentication token, but you can probably not use it. Yeah. That was confusing. Yeah. Sorry.
Now we don't, I don't understand.
Yeah, I was working with another project, so enforcement, and now I should use the new one. So is it, and it's like
Did you find the bug?
Remember that I'm screen recording, so just gonna turn it off.
How to make one.
So, okay. I'm trying this.